A is for Amy, who fell down the stairs. B is for Basil, assaulted by bears. C is for Clara, who wasted away. And so proceedeth 26 children to awful alphabetical ends. M is for Maud, who was swept out to sea. N is for Neville, who died of ennui. These unfortunate little beings, called the Gashlycrumb Tinies, are the brain children of a singular brain, that of Edward Gorey. Never heard of him? Well, maybe you have. Gorey created the opening artwork for the PBS program Mystery. Edward Gorey makes cameo appearances in his own work. He is a man who went everywhere during his 30 years living in New York, wearing a floor-length raccoon coat and basketball sneakers.
When in doubt, just draw a cat's head.
Cats are among the more conventional figures in Gorey's drawings. He has 4.
Hi there, Jane.
He lives and works on Cape Cod now, in a house as eclectic as the workings of his mind. In terms of the people who like your work, do you have any sense of them?
Yes, sometimes they're about 3 years old, and sometimes they're about 90, and sometimes they're sort of demented, and sometimes they're, quite, I think, gee, you don't look as if you like my books.
His books often involve odd, invented creatures, like the Doubtful Guest, or something called a fig bash. If a Gorey story is about people, they are usually upper-class and vaguely English-looking, straight out of some period costume drama, in which something wicked, or at least bizarre, always happens. The World of Edward Gorey is a new book by Karen Wilkin and Clifford Ross, who has known Gorey for more than 25 years.
Later, I was graduating from college. I needed a subject for a thesis, and rather than write the umpteenth senior thesis on Van Gogh, I thought, how about Edward Gorey and doing a show of his work, because I really had gotten to know it and love it.
I'm supposed to open this now?
They've been friends ever since.
Yes, I have a knife. It's not very sharp.
I still don't totally get Edward. I don't think anybody can.
Is that the fascination?
Without question. Every time I see Edward, every time I talk to him, there's some new thing coming up, and I'm always surprised.
Ooh, how beautiful. Which way does it go?
It's a finial from the
finial,
top of a building, upside down.
Oh, it was from the top of a building?
Yes.
Heavens, it's wonderful.
Edward Gorey collects things, all kinds of things. First, there are his books.
The French books are over there. This was all novels at one point, but then it sort of changed.
He says he reads a lot more than most people, picking up bits and pieces that stick to what he calls his flypaper mind and eventually show up in his work. How do you explain the large number of salt shakers?
At some point I decided they looked like people.
Can you kind of identify what sort of a person?
No.
What's the toilet for?
Well, I had it turned into a table. I thought it looked sort of like an elephant.
It would be wrong to call all this a mess. An artist's eye is evident. There is conscious composition. In fact, the longer you're around Edward Gorey, the more you begin to see in his surroundings glimpses of the Gorey-esque. What about all these animals?
Upstairs I have hundreds of little animals, and I also have lots of bears. I'm beginning to sound dopier by the moment.
People describe you as an eccentric. Are you an eccentric?
Well, I suppose, yes. I mean, obviously I am in a great many ways. Other ways, I think I'm just your, ordinary kid from the Middle West.
Chicago, to be exact. Edward Gorey thinks up silly pseudonyms for himself, all of them anagrams of his name. So, Ogdred Weary wrote The Beastly Baby, but Mrs. Regira Dowdy wrote The Pious Infant. Over the last 40 years, Gorey has written and illustrated dozens of these little books, which often can only be found at the Gotham Book Mart in New York City, a kind of combination collector bookstore and Edward Gorey shrine.
He gets more color out of black and white. than most people get out of a full range of spectrum colors.
Art critic Karen Wilkin is not only co-author of The World of Edward Gorey, but a huge fan.
There's a kind of a quality of obsessiveness, an obsessive intensity in these drawings that I think is part of what makes them so compelling, as well as beautiful, even when the subject is fairly horrifying.
Not to mention off-the-wall funny. Grass plot in the shape of the state of Kansas, Ilwell Park, Andiron City, Oklahoma.
Why not? And then the neglected murderesses.
Miss Q.P. Urkheimer brained her fiancé after failing to pick up an easy spare at Glover's Lanes, Poxville, Kansas, 1936. Do you like any of these? Edward Gorey's friends, like Clifford Ross, are forever trying to make him rich and famous. But so far, he's resisted. First Disney, then Henson.
Completely closed my eyes.
He just never really wanted that to happen. And his way of sort of not making it happen was not to come to New York. And at first I was, I wanted to shake him. And then I thought, that's Edward.
Hi, George. Oh, George, dear.
So people
Hello.
go to
Hello,
him.
George.
And being generous and indulgent, he'll perform
Actually,
if it suits him.
We might as well go for broke. I think there's an unstuffed fig bash here if you'd like to see me stuff a fig bash.
What is a fig bash?
It's a fig bash. You're trying to pin me down, Martha. It's a fig bash. That's what it is.
Edward Gorey makes fig bashes while he watches TV, which he does as obsessively as he does everything else. He figures he's watched every episode of the Mary Tyler Moore Show 7 or 8 times, for example.
This is that VCR. This is the TV set. This is the other VCR. And this is the dish.
He doesn't just read one book by an author, he reads every one.
Usual Edzo?
Yes.
He is also a creature of habit. Every day, 365 days a year, Edward Gorey eats at Jack's Outback restaurant,
Hey, easy.
Eh.
Look at strawberries growing on trees. Look at that.
where he has certain privileges most customers don't have. The World of Edward Gorey is contained within a mile or so of his house. It looks like a picture postcard going into that singular brain of his. It comes out looking like the Zyke, who stands up at close of day and then slowly walks away. Or the Yobble, who stares and stares and stares and stares and stares and stares and stares. About the Zote, what can be said? There was just one, and now it's dead.